What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we've got some brand spankin' new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that has just gone live, unveiling official information. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, Bungie addressed all of the concerns involving Guardian games. What started out as a fun, kind of casual activity to see which class is the best, which class can deposit the most overall medals for doing activities and bounties, etc., turned into, well, a very controversial thing. A lot of people were crying foul play, and a lot of people felt like there was cheating going on, there was some manipulation of the stats going on, and more. Well, to be honest, Bungie cleared pretty much all of that stuff up. I made a video on it a couple of days ago and addressed the main concerns, and to be honest, Bungie kind of confirmed everything I said. Now, that's a little smug, but when you're called an absolute idiot for 3 days straight, it's nice to get some vindication, to be honest. Let's talk about the cheating thing. So, DMG, community manager, came out on Twitter and made this thread, saying specifically, apologies for the delay on commentary here. If you see a player spamming metal turn-ins in the tower, this is a purely visual bug. This is providing no extra benefit to any class in Guardian games. The team has tested and verified this. Wanted to make sure before making a statement, because obviously there are videos of certain classes just turning in metal after metal after metal by using a net limiter, but again, this has no actual effect on the standings. He continues, deleting and creating a character isn't moving the needle either. The impact of Guardian Games intro quest farming, since all classes are doing it in similar ratios, is negligible and has no impact on the final daily rankings. Yes, Titans really are just crushing it. Wow. And he even has a little summary. So essentially, those cheating allegations, which I very much understand why people made them. It makes sense if you see someone spamming medals in the tower to be concerned about that. It makes sense to wonder how many people are recreating characters and if that actually impacts Guardian Games, but this is Bungie themselves saying no, it doesn't. Now, what about the weighting? That's the last big concern, because we do know that hunters were weighted in a certain way so that their overwhelming numbers didn't just give them a guaranteed win. And a lot of people were saying hunters are hugely disadvantaged because of that. They didn't weight the active players, they weighted total players, and again, that's a very legitimate concern. Well, Bungie came out in this week's weekly update and clarified what exactly they did. Now, Bungie states, our goal was that each class should have an equal chance to win regardless of its size, and that participating in the event should never hurt your team. Saying further, the last part is important because it ruled out the simplest approach of basing the results on the average contribution per class. While this would effectively normalize the classes based on how many people participate, it would also create a situation where participating at anything but a maximum level could actually harm your team by bringing its average down. Dipping your toe into the event and depositing a single bronze medal per day shouldn't be worse for your team than not participating at all, and to me, that makes sense. So instead of normalizing based on participating players, we decided to normalize based on the pool of potential players. For each class, we counted every character who played at least one activity over the 30 days prior to the event and then divided that result by the total across all 3 classes. The result is the scaling factor that we apply to each medal deposited. This method means that medals from Warlocks and Titans count more, counteracting Hunter's population advantage, and ensures that even a minimal level of participation helps your team instead of harming it. The more members of your class that show up to play, the better your class will do. It also means that we don't have to worry about players creating tons of dummy alt accounts once the event begins to try to tank a team's chances. So they say on day 1 of the event, Hunters won not simply because there are more of them, but because a greater percentage of them showed up and contributed. On day 2, Titans arrived and began outperforming the Hunters. Warlocks are no doubt considering all angles and planning for the right moment to strike. So they actually released this graph, saying this graph shows how many of each class actually participated relative to how many characters each class had active in the prior 30 days of the event beginning. You can see the tight correlation between more bodies in the game and the outcome of the competition. So you can see Hunters just had more people showing up on day 1. That's why they absolutely destroyed day 1. And after that, Hunters have been trailing off every single day. They simply are not showing up. They're complaining on Twitter and not doing any medals. Now that's very mean to say, and some of you are going to dislike because of that, but to be honest, according to the data, that's the truth. But Bungie continues, that's not the whole story. Titans haven't just been overwhelming the competition with a flood of muscle mass, they've also been out-depositing the other classes on an individual basis. On average, each Titan has contributed more medals to their cause than each Hunter or Warlock. This has been true on day 1, releasing this graph as well, showcasing like average medals deposited for all the classes. But on day 1, there were enough Hunters participating that they made up for it in bodies and they still got the win. So Bungie states kind of unequivocally, you can see that Titans are outperforming in 2 fronts. A higher percentage of their ranks are showing up, and when they do, they're depositing more medals than their other competitors. So it seems like there is no conspiracy. Titans are just legitimately winning this competition. Of course, the one caveat is the whole conversation of, well, it's way easier to get laurels if you're playing on a Titan with the insurmountable Skullfort exotic helmet. And that's a very legitimate point, and that's a conversation we have to have, because if it's way quicker to do your medals, you're more likely to actually do them. But aside from that one factor, it does appear that Bungie has put an end to these conspiracy theories, these rigging allegations, and it's just one team going ham. Alright, but let's move on from Guardian Games and talk about the next subject discussed within this weekly update, and that is how seasons are going to be changing moving forward within Destiny 2. And this is going to be beginning in Year 4, and Year 4 starts with Season 12, which is going to be the fall expansion, whatever that turns out to be. So Bungie says in Year 4, we're going to build a better interconnected narrative and, more importantly, let players be a part of the narrative no matter when they enter within that current year. This means that if you start playing in March 2021, you can go back and experience the Season 12 and Season 13 narrative content. We want our stories to feel more cohesive and flow with meaningful momentum season over season and lead to an exciting climax each year. So like right now, you cannot do that. If you start playing yesterday, you can't go and re-experience what happened in Season of Dawn. Like that is over and done for. So this means that they're actually going to be carrying forward the seasonal content over the entire year for Year 4. It won't disappear every single season. And they have a whole section about activities lasting the entire year, as I've stated. So they use the example of, for Season of Dawn, the sundial. Well, that disappeared, but whenever Year 4 rolls around, whatever Year 4 and that season's version of the sundial is, as well as the exotic quests like the Devil's Ruin and the Bastion and all that stuff, those are going to remain for the entirety of Year 4. And again, that means that people coming in after the season and stuff like that can still experience these things. And importantly, you can still get the loot from those events and activities. You don't feel left out if you didn't get, a piece of loot that's from a past season. Now, of course, this is great, but this is already an issue, so how are they fixing it short term? Well, they do say that they're going to be adding some select weapons from Season 8, 9, and 10 into an engram that will drop during Season 11. So, if you missed out on, for example, the Breachlight from Sundial, a very desirable weapon, you can now, that weapon hasn't been specifically confirmed, but the good weapons from those seasons will hopefully be put into the special engram, so you can, if you started playing during this season, you can actually acquire those, great weapons from past seasons. Moving on from there, Bungie finally addresses the bounty issue, essentially the fact that this entire season revolves around doing boring bounties. Firstly, they talk about shifting away from weekly FOMO, saying that the weekly bounties are the best way to gain experience, and so if you miss a week or don't do them in a week, you're going to fall behind. And they're going to move towards, in Season 12, having objectives that don't disappear week to week. So you can grab them, they're account-based, and then you can do them. If you do miss a week, you can do them the next week, and then you can catch back up again. They also talk about how bounties are going to be shifting away from being essentially required to level up your seasonal path, and hopefully that means more experience for actually doing an activity rather than just doing all of the bounties for that activity. They talk about events such as Guardian Games in the future shifting away from just having a ton of bounties you need to complete, which is fantastic. And Bungie also talks about some quality of life improvements, mainly, bounties. If they're going to be important, why do we have to go to the tower every 2 seconds to grab them? So they say that being able to grab bounties directly from the destination map would be a huge improvement, and frankly, I agree. They also mention relaxing the expiry times of bounties, so you actually have a little bit more time to do them, and they talk about how the objectives are going to be less restrictive in how you play, and you'll be able to complete more bounties for just playing the activity normally, thank goodness. So these changes as a whole, the shift away from just grabbing and grinding mindlessly bounties over and over again, is definitely a good thing to hear. It is a little bit disappointing that it's coming all the way with Season 12 in September. I wish these things could be acted upon sooner, but obviously development takes time, and it's good that they have addressed these and that they're fixing them rather than not. So guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.